Hey solos, so you're going to Walt Disney World all by yourself and you are wondering if you should go to the BoardWalk Hotel. Maybe to stay, but maybe just to walk around and check it out. Should you? Well, solo spoiler, the BoardWalk Hotel has so many really cool things to see and to check out and places to eat, and there's also really great accommodations. And so yeah, it's definitely worth checking out, even if you're not staying there, but if you're staying there, it's pretty cool too. Hi everyone, it's Samantha. Olaf may not know who Samantha is, but now you do, and welcome to Disney Solo Magic, the #1 podcast for solo travel to Disney World, now in its second year. So we have done a whole June full of solo stories, and now we are moving into July and August, which is going to be packed full of deluxe resorts. Last July and August, I covered the value and moderate resorts, talking about what they're like and whether or not you should stay there as a solo. In this series, I'm going to talk about the deluxe resorts, and not only whether you should stay there, but also should you just visit there as a solo. Is there something that's worth going to eat or do or see if you are solo? And I think this is going to be such a fun series for me to do because I love the hotels despite not staying at any of the deluxe resorts yet. I hope. So what I've also done is I have recruited a ton of people to be able to talk about what their stays were like staying at these deluxe resorts solo. And so I'm going to talk about the resorts generally. And then for the second part of this episode, there is going to be a mini solo story that just talks about somebody's experience there. And I'm so glad. I'm so glad that one of you actually made this suggestion on the survey that I put out in February, I think, because it really provided an extra dimension of the way that we can talk about the deluxe resorts in this series. Although I should say that they also solidified how much I know about these resorts despite never staying there. So that was pretty funny too. In this episode, like I said, we're going to be talking about the Boardwalk, and I talked with Kristy, also known as Mickey Guru Travel, who is a travel agent and was buzzing around Epic Universe during the opening of the park as well. So we didn't get a chance to talk about that for this particular episode, but perhaps there'll be another reason why she'll come on and talk more about Disney and Epic Universe. But we got to talk about Boardwalk in this episode. So you can follow me and Kristy on all of our social media, and those links are in the description below. And while you're down there, please make sure you click on Apple, Spotify, and on YouTube in order to rate, review, and subscribe. Because the more you do that, the more other people who are interested in Disney Solo Magic will be able to see this podcast. And I really, really appreciate that support. The other way you can support the podcast is through Patreon. So Patreon has the reflections on every single episode. They also have the videos of all of the solo stories. So that means that because there's going to be mini solo stories in all of these July and August episodes, you're going to be able to see those videos too, which is really cool. You also get an outline of all of the different episodes that are coming up, an opportunity to vote on particular episodes, and every once in a while I will drop a bonus episode. I wanted to record one for you this last long weekend, but it got really hot. And I was like, nah, I'm too hot to record anything, but I have a bonus episode that's coming up, and I'm really excited to share that with you. So go check that on Patreon. It is a 7-day free trial. All right. I think that's all. Let's get into it. Have I mentioned I love hotels? All right. I love hotels. So I've been trying to think about the best way to organize all of the different hotels that we're doing. I'm going to be covering most of the deluxe resorts, but not all of them, just because we won't have time. Like Halloween has already started for a lot of people, and there is a very special guest coming in August who definitely takes precedent over this particular series anyway. So in August, we're going to do all of the Magic Kingdom ones, and we are going to start with the Epcot Deluxe Resorts, and then also have Animal Kingdom thrown in there as well. So we're starting with Boardwalk today because I thought that was kind of like Americana, and because I know you Americans just celebrated July 4th, that this kind of link to Americana might be, I don't know, I like a good theme. You know that if you've been listening. But I'm going to start with an introduction that I'm going to do with all of the resorts, and that is just the overview of the different resorts. So Walt Disney World has 3.5 categories of hotels: value, moderate, deluxe. And the half is deluxe villas. So the value resorts are value resorts. They are the cheapest option. They include Pop Century, Art of Animation, and the 3 different all-star hotels. Then there are the moderate resorts, and that is a moderate price point. There are only 4 of those: Port Orleans Riverside, Port Orleans French Quarter, Caribbean Beach, and Coronado. Again, if you want to hear about those resorts, you can check out the series from last summer. The deluxe resorts and the deluxe villas are the most expensive of all of the Disney hotels, and there are also the most hotels that are deluxe resorts. It's funny because one day I was like, okay, my goal is to stay at all of the moderate resorts, and then I was like, oh, I already have. There's only 4 of them. But the deluxe resorts, there are quite a lot of them. And the deluxe resorts also, like I said, include, when I say deluxe resorts, I include the deluxe villas. But what the deluxe villas are they're part of the Disney Vacation Club. The Disney Vacation Club is essentially Disney's timeshare. And sometimes what they have done is they have taken rooms in a deluxe resort and they have transformed them into Disney Vacation Club or DVC rooms. The difference between the deluxe or regular hotel rooms and the deluxe villas hotel rooms are the fact that with the Disney Vacation Club, the idea is that you are renting a house. But you're not really renting a house. Renting a house or renting a villa, but you're not really renting either of those things. You're renting a room. But as a way to make it seem more like a house, these villa rooms include things like a kitchen and a table and all of that stuff. So if you're going to stay at a deluxe resort regular room, you'll probably get a room that has just 2 queen beds or 1 king bed, right? Like a standard hotel room. But if you're staying in a deluxe villa room, even if it's in the same resort, it's usually called a studio because you wouldn't be getting a whole house or a whole villa. You'd be getting a studio. It would involve a bed, maybe even a pull out or pull down couch, and then a small kitchenette. And in some of the villas, the larger ones, definitely also have things like laundry facilities. So if you are wondering whether or not you should stay in a regular room or in a deluxe villa studio room, the big factor, I guess, is the kitchen. Now, I have tried to talk with the people that I've interviewed for the series about the differences between these 2 rooms. But often, understandably, the people that I've interviewed haven't done enough of the rooms to really see the nuance. So it's really up to you if you want a studio or just a regular room. I do think that there are substantial differences, but they're also kind of negligible, it's still going to be a really great experience. You can also use a third-party company that rents out DVC points, DVC rooms, so that you can stay at a deluxe studio for cheaper than a regular room. Okay. As I say these words, they make complete sense to me, but they only make sense to me because I am in this world in which those things make sense. So I apologize in advance if there are things that I say, especially related to the DVC and the deluxe villas and all of that don't make sense to you. Please, please, please send me a DM if it doesn't make sense, because I can clarify it more when I do the more episodes coming up through July and August. I've talked on the podcast that there's this learning theory or a teaching theory actually called expert blind spot, that when you're an expert in something, you get a blind spot about knowing or not knowing what it's like to be a novice in this area. Now, I wouldn't necessarily consider myself an expert, but I do know that I've spent far more time thinking about these things than the average person. Just ask my family when I bring it up randomly at a pool party. They're like, what? Okay, can we just not talk about Disney for 5 minutes? And I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. So if you're like, oh gosh, I would like to stay at this hotel, but I don't really understand the difference, please send me a DM on Instagram. That is the best way to get in touch with me, and it will make it easier for me to know how I can better frame this information for you going forward. Okay, so let's just talk about the deluxe resorts in general. One of the key elements of the deluxe resorts is that, except for the Animal Kingdom Lodge, all of the deluxe resorts are fairly close with only one quick mode of transportation to at least one park. So for example, if you stay at All Star Sports, there is no way that you can get to any park without taking a Disney bus or a Lyft or an Uber or driving. For sure. If you're staying at Coronado Resort, the same thing. There is no way that you can quickly get to any of the resorts without taking a Disney bus or driving or taking a Lyft or an Uber. But with the deluxe resorts, except for Animal Kingdom Lodge, you can get to at least one of the parks really close and really efficiently. In fact, the BoardWalk Resort, which we are talking about today, you can walk to Epcot and Hollywood Studios in like under 20 minutes. And that 20 minutes is like a nice stroll. That's not like a like a suburban wasteland or a bustling city. It's actually just a lovely stroll along the, wait for it, boardwalk in order to get to one of these two parks. You can also get to Epcot or Hollywood Studios by boat. So you can walk, but you can also take a boat. And again, these are like the boat ride itself, if you were just going direct, is like 5 minutes, but it does a couple stops along the way at the different hotels. And so it takes a little bit longer, which I don't know, it's just kind of a nice little bonus, I think. But Boardwalk is not in between Epcot and Hollywood Studios, but it definitely feels like it is in between the two hotels. And so I think of it, so do other people, as an Epcot hotel because of how close it is to that park. And that is a real wonderful bonus if you're going solo, especially if you're going solo during one of the food festivals or during one of the concert series, and you're really just going to hear this music or eat this food. It is so nice and close. The Boardwalk Hotel is themed as like early 20th century Coney Island, Atlantic City boardwalks. What's really cool about this hotel is that it is kind of outward facing. So a lot of hotels are inward facing, and that they're creating a community and a sanctuary kind of inside the hotel. But what's really cool about Boardwalk is that it is outward facing. Disney has created an actual boardwalk with different restaurants and shops and things like that you can go and visit that are part of the hotel. Plus, there's a whole bunch of rooms that again face this outside that look like it is part of Coney Island, Atlantic City. And so it really has this beautiful outside image of just walking on a boardwalk. The boardwalk faces Crescent Lake, which is a body of water, again, in between Epcot and Hollywood Studios. And it faces Crescent Lake, but it also looks directly onto the beach and yacht club hotels, which I'll be talking about next week. The two hotels together create this really nice like circle. That's actually just a really beautiful, nice, serene, cool walk to do. Also extraordinarily safe if you are a solo and you are worried about that kind of walking alone and not being in the parks. Like, you don't need to worry about that here. So it's just a really beautiful kind of serene area. And what's really interesting about Boardwalk, like I said, it's outward facing towards Crescent Lake, but that isn't actually where the lobby is. If you were to take a Lyft or an Uber there, you would actually be dropped off on the other side of the hotel. So if you think of the hotel as a crescent, again, that hugs that water, the boardwalk is the inside of that crescent. And then the lobby is on the outside of the crescent. And so it really does feel like a hotel that isn't necessarily designed to just be a hotel. It's really designed to be this boardwalk space. And there is also a hotel. And that was actually purposeful. So the Boardwalk Hotel was created as another shopping and dining district like Disney Springs on a much smaller scale. When they had envisioned this boardwalk, they had envisioned to have lots of food kiosks and roaming entertainment and music and a real bustling area. This was also to take some of the overflow from the Swan and Dolphin hotels that are also very close to these two Disney hotels that often will host conferences. Now, look, I haven't spent a lot of time at the Boardwalk Hotel at night, but my impression is that this vision of a bustling outdoor entertainment dining space has never really happened the way Disney expected it to. I don't think, with some very rare exceptions, this is really as bustling and busy and happening a space as Disney Springs is, for sure. So if you did want to, if you were there solo and you just wanted to go and be outside and feel some vibes and do all that, get a drink and do some dancing, all that stuff, you're going to go to Disney Springs. You're not going to go to Boardwalk, even though it was kind of designed for that to happen. So because of that, I feel like, and this isn't a criticism of Boardwalk, to me, actually, it's a bit of a compliment. I like it for this. It feels a bit, this just seems so harsh to say. It feels a bit energetically dead. There's a big space that was created for a lot of hustle and bustle, but it's never hustled, nor has it bustled. And so therefore it just kind of is there and beautiful and gorgeous and is right on the water and has some, you can walk to Epcot, all that stuff. I love the Boardwalk Hotel, but I feel the absence of it not being the hustle and bustle that it was designed to be. Now, I say this so that if you did want hustle and bustle, to go to Disney Springs, but also to know that if you, like me, are kind of turned off by a lot of hustle and bustle, especially when you are there solo, that I'm going to say to you, then you should go. It's pretty cool. Now, I haven't ever spent a lot of time there at night, so I don't know if I'm completely wrong, but I don't think I'm completely wrong. And if I am completely wrong, please tell me. I would love to make a correction. But the fact is, I just don't think it ever kind of launched the way it was supposed to. So go enjoy, but don't feel intimidated. I guess that's what I really want to say. Don't feel intimidated that it's going to be this big, bustling, happening place and you're just going to be solo, kind of by yourself and being like, ooh, I shouldn't be here. This feels awkward to be here. I just think it is so cool and serene, and that's why it's really awesome to go. Now, that's kind of at night. During the day, it's even more energetically dead. It's even more quiet. And so I have often used the Boardwalk as a bit of a stopover between Epcot and Hollywood Studios as a place just kind of sit and relax. So that's kind of an overview. Let's start breaking things down a little bit more clearly. So the Boardwalk Hotel is again themed after early 20th century Atlantic City, Coney Island type boardwalks. It's hard for me to kind of know exactly where to start with this particular hotel, because if you are going there to just explore and you're not staying there, you are probably going to enter through the boardwalk. But if you were going to stay there, then you would be entering from the lobby. And like I said, those are two completely different entrances. Because I am thinking that this episode, I'd like to be as broad as possible, I'm going to start with your entrance to the boardwalk from the actual Boardwalk Hotel, not from the lobby. So I'm going to imagine that you are walking from Epcot. And when you are walking from Epcot, you are going to see this beautiful boardwalk ahead of you. And you are also going to start to see a lot of different restaurants. In particular, the first restaurant you are going to see is the Cake Bake Shop, which is the newest restaurant on the boardwalk. It has a bakery and a full dining room. It is very expensive. Apparently, it's very, very good. There's just something about it that, although I am a very big fan of cake and baking and restaurants, there's just something about it that I just don't feel, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to go. I don't know. I've had some weird experiences just kind of around, not like physically around the cake bake shop, but anyway, obviously a lot of people go, a lot of people really enjoy it. That's the first thing that you're going to see. Then you're going to see an ice cream shop that's only open kind of later in the day. You're going to see the Boardwalk Deli, which is a bit of a quick service restaurant that was renovated to the deli a few years ago. You're also going to see the pizza window. So there is an Italian restaurant called Trattoria al Forno, and it has a pizza window that you can get takeout pizza without having to go into the restaurant. A lot of people know about this pizza window. I've never really eaten pizza at Disney, I don't think. I guess except for Epcot. So I've never used the pizza window, but there is that pizza window there. There's also the Italian restaurant, Trattoria al Forno, that I've gone to a few times, and it was delicious. Beside that is the Abracadabra bar. So it is a bar that is themed to magic, which is pretty cool. Also, it shares the same bathroom with Trattoria al Forno, so if you go for breakfast at Trattoria al Forno and you want to see the bar, but you don't want to go by yourself to get a drink, you can also look around to the bar when you get up to go to the bathroom, as something I may or may not have done a couple times. Beside the Abracadabra bar, there is a restaurant called the Flying Fish, which is a seafood restaurant. Then you are going to see this big open lawn, which is where you would cross to get into the lobby. I'm going to leave that there for now, and I'm going to move on to the other side of the lawn. The other side of the lawn has the store for the hotel. Now, it will tell you that there are 3 different stores here, and just like the Emporium at Main Street, USA in Magic Kingdom, it is essentially the same store that just has 3 different entrances. This is where you can get some groceries as well as confectionery snacks, slushies, but also Rice Krispie Mickey things and all that stuff. And you can get some clothes and souvenirs and all of that. Beside those stores, there is actually a DVC, a Disney Vacation Club, I think selling hostess place. And then there used to be a dueling piano bar called Jelly Rolls that a few months ago closed because of the high price of rent. And then at the very end, there is the Atlantic Dance Hall, which is like a dance club. Which is cool. I always want to go, but I'm I spent a lot of time walking today. Do I really want to go all the way there to dance? But I think if I was staying close, I would definitely be more apt to go, because I think they play a lot of 90s music, and to me that seems like contemporary music, but to a lot of people, I don't think the people listening though, that is old music. So you see what I mean by it being very outward facing. A lot of hotels, a lot of the value and moderate resort hotels, their quick service restaurant, their stores are right in the main lobby. But in this particular hotel, if you wanted to get a quick service meal at the Boardwalk Deli, you actually kind of have to leave the hotel and go to the boardwalk. If you wanted to go to the store quickly and get deodorant or a snack or a whole outfit or a souvenir, you again have to leave the hotel and go to the boardwalk. And so that's why it's actually a really great hotel to visit if you aren't staying there, because it is designed for not just the people who are staying in the boardwalk, but also the people who are going to visit the boardwalk as patrons of the eating and shopping destinations. There are a couple other things on the boardwalk related to shopping and to eating that I didn't mention. There are a couple just kind of outdoor kiosks that you can get margaritas, and there's a new place that you can get corn dogs. So a lot of people ventured to get a corn dog when it opened a couple months ago. I did not. but I'm not opposed to it, so we shall see. Along with the 3 Disney stores, which are really the same store, there is also a fine art gallery that is kind of tucked in there, and you can get some fancy expensive art. I've never been in there because I do not have a budget for fancy expensive Disney art, and so I've never been in there, but it's pretty cool when I look by. So if you wanted to go check out the boardwalk, you can go to all these places without really even going into what you would think is the hotel. So now let us move into the hotel. Like I said, there is this great big lawn, and that is where they do the things like the movies in the evenings. Like they do that at all the different hotels. They have this inflatable screen that they'll project a movie on. You can go to these whether you're staying at the hotel or not. So if you're passing by and you're like, ooh, Encanto's playing tonight, like feel free to stay and watch on the lawn. There's also like games and things that they do on the lawn. They had a big Christmas tree on the lawn. I was there with my mother like a few years ago, and the cast members were just there and nobody was like playing with any of the games that they had set up. So we were like, okay, well, show us how to play these games. And so we spent like 40 minutes, us adults, playing with the cast members who were there to like provide those recreation services. It was a ton of fun. Like, do not feel weird about going and engaging in any of the things that are happening on that lawn. You can also, right in front of the lawn, you can also rent Surrey bikes. Now, the Surrey bikes are bikes for 2 people, so you're probably not going to rent them solo. They used to have single bikes, but I think that probably got a little dangerous. The Surrey bikes can go a little slower. So yeah, like again, it's designed for a lot of action. There's just sometimes not a lot of action. But if you cross this lawn, you can go up the stairs, and that is how you're going to get to the lobby. The lobby is really beautiful, but I kind of always think of it as quite small and squished. I wish that it felt a little bit more expansive because they have some super cool artifacts in the lobby that from this turn of the century Atlantic City, Coney Island type places. They have like horses from different Ferris wheels. They have something that are talked about on the DFB guide a lot called the nanny chairs, which are these weird ugly chairs, or the cool chairs with some ugly faces on it that represent who they represent, but the idea is that nannies would sit on these chairs while the kids were playing. They also have some photographs, like 100-year-old photographs of people in these different boardwalk areas, but also like this big elephant that people used to be able to like go into. It's just really cool. But what's really frustrating and sad for me as someone who is really interested in history, as something that I've talked about on this podcast before, is that it's actually very hard / impossible to find actual information about some of the artifacts that are in the lobby. In preparing for these episodes, I've done a lot of research to be like, somebody tell me some of this information, and it's very hard. And I found that the same thing that happened in some of the other resorts when I wanted to get information about like the artist of a particular piece of artwork. And these things are so meticulously curated that it is baffling that it is not more like that curation, and the information about these objects are not more readily available to guests. It's kind of sad. I mean, it's frustrating as a historian, but it's just also sad, I think, that all that work you can't kind of learn from. So if you are a solo and you're not staying at Boardwalk, go into the lobby and check out how cool a lot of these objects are. And as always, the cast members are super friendly and they'll tell you as much as they can. But don't feel weird about going in and looking around. The thing is, too, they have really been trying to get crowds to come to the Boardwalk and the Yacht Club and the Beach Club, which are, again, across Crescent Lake, by having things like a really cool Christmas tree or an Easter egg display or a gingerbread display. So during those holiday months, go check out Boardwalk, because I actually thought that some of the displays that I saw around Easter and Christmas last year were cooler than what I could see at the Grand Floridian, because I mean the Grand Floridian was just so busy, it was hard to enjoy it. And this year there isn't going to be the gingerbread display at the Grand Floridian because of the renovations that they're doing. So get comfortable going to other hotels to check these out, and the Boardwalk is a really great one for that. And also, like during Christmas, for example, all of the hotels, when they decorate according to the theme of the hotel. So you're going to see some really cool and interesting and unique Christmas decorations there. So yeah, again, go check it out. Right off the lobby is a little cafe, and that's where you can get coffee. That's where you can get some baked goods and things like that. I have often gotten a drink there. But the cast members have been fantastic. It's been often the same cast members every time I've gone, but there's really nothing to write home about. It's a place to get coffee. There's a place to sit down. There's some really nice photographs of Julie Andrews in there, but there isn't anything like spectacular. On the other side of the lobby is a little lounge, so like a place that you can get alcoholic drinks, and that is called the Bellevue Lounge. I love this place so much. And I've never actually gotten a drink there. It opens at around 3, sometimes at 4 o'clock, and I've often been there in the afternoon. But the reason why I love it is that there, again, are so many artifacts from the early 20th century that are just really cool. There is music piped in that sounds like it's old radio music to get to the Bellevue Lounge. It's out in the open. It's not like it's anything that you have to go and sneak around and find, but there's some really cool artifacts that lead up to it as well. It's just this really cool, comfortable space. And why I've spent so much time there but not actually getting a drink is that it is a place that I go and take a little nap in the middle of the afternoon if I need it. So when I'm done at Epcot, I need a couple hours to just kind of like relax. What I'll do is I will slowly walk over to the boardwalk. I'll sit in the Bellevue Lounge for maybe like 30 minutes. I'll charge my phone. I'll get some air conditioning. I'll just like close my brain and take a little mental nap. And then I will slowly walk over to Hollywood Studios, or vice versa. It is so comfortable. Now, other people know about this space too, so there's often other people that are sitting there. But because it is out in the open, it's not like this place that you have to, like, it's not like a place that you feel like you are going there and you don't belong there. There are other people there. It's not something you have to find. And I've often seen people like with their luggage or with laptops also working. And so go and sit and relax. Right off the Bellevue Lounge, too, there is a little veranda that you can sit outside. Now, I've never sat there because it's often very hot by the time I get there, but it seems like a really cool place to go and sit with a book and a nice cold drink and really enjoy. And also there is another like veranda area that is just off of that as well, that again is just a beautiful view. And I bet at the end of the night around sunset that area actually gets pretty full with people just kind of relaxing, enjoying the outdoor air. But if you are going to sit in those areas and you were there before drinks are served, again, you have to kind of bring food from outdoors, which I don't really love. And the same with if you're going, for example, to the quick service restaurant on the Boardwalk Deli. In my brain, a few times, I'm like, I'm going to go to the Boardwalk Deli, pick up something to eat, bring it back to the Bellevue Lounge, and just kind of have a quiet, cold lunch there. To me, that has never really worked. The Boardwalk Deli has some really delicious things. I had an Italian cannoli there that was amazing, but I often find the food kind of too heavy for the summer. The summer, meaning Florida weather, and there isn't any place to eat inside the Boardwalk Deli. So even though I often will think I'll bring food from the deli or outside on the boardwalk into the hotel, into the lobby, into the Bellevue Lounge to eat, I never quite do that. what I have done instead is actually gone to the pool bar. So let us move to the pool bar. Okay, so we're just in the lobby. We can see the little cafe, we can see the Bellevue Lounge, but if we leave the lobby, if we exit the lobby, go back to the boardwalk, there is a beautiful pool there and it has a pool bar. The pool bar is called Leaping Libations, and there is like drink, like a libation, like a drink. And they have an image of a woman on a diving horse. Now, for those of you elder millennials and Gen X like myself, you might remember this movie called Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken that came out in the early 90s with Sonora, who was blind, and she would dive off this diving board with her horses, and her husband or her boyfriend was this deliciously sexy guy named like Michael something. I can't remember his name, but he was also in Mermaids. He was also in Pretty in Pink, but I know him mainly from Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken and from Mermaids. Big crush on him then, obviously, still now. And so the pool bar is named after these diving horses, the Leaping Libations, and it looks like a little like carousel. It's really cool in there. Not in there. It's there isn't an inn. It's a pool bar, so everything is outside, and they have a pretty full menu. I've eaten at the bar a couple times and enjoyed the food. Again, it wasn't anything to write home about, but it was lighter fare options than you could get at the Boardwalk Deli, which again is the quick service on the actual boardwalk, and I could sit and eat like I could at the Bellevue Lounge, but here, although I'm outside, I'd be in the shade. So I've often had lunch there and I've enjoyed it. Like I said, that is the pool bar. So you'll see the main pool there. It's called the Luna Park pool. And just a reminder that you aren't allowed to swim in pools that are not your own. But when you are going to the pool bar, you might think, people might think that I'm going to swim in the pool. It's totally okay. Just walk right on through, go sit at the pool bar. It's great. That also has a water slide that looks like it's one of those old school roller coasters, which is pretty cool. In the reflection from this week, I'll talk a little bit more about this particular pool and my experiences at the pool bar, including this weird story about this guy that talked about how much he loved his wife and then also started talking about cheating on her when she left. It was kind of an odd situation. But anyway, that's a reflection on Patreon. Okay, so in sum, if you are going to the Boardwalk Hotel as someone who is not staying there, you have all those food and drink options available to you. You have some stores. I often actually have gotten a lot of things at that store at the Boardwalk. I find like it's like a perfect location and it's often quite quiet and very cool, like very air conditioned to go and like pick up the things that I need that I don't know, that all of a sudden in the middle of Hollywood Studios, I was like, oh no, I definitely need X, and then I can go and pick it up in this store. So again, it's really cool, serene. You have all these food and beverage and shopping options available to you. Is it worth going? Definitely, for sure. But is it worth going at night to go like dancing? I don't know, maybe, but if that's really your vibe, then definitely go to Disney Springs. The food options at the Boardwalk are really great. Great, yes, definitely go and visit, but don't expect to spend a lot of time there, I guess. Like, don't expect to be entertained during your time there. Like, you could go and spend 3 hours, like, sitting on the boardwalk and in the lounge and all that stuff, but you're there to sit. You're not there to be like, oh gosh, look what I happened to bump into this show or whatever. Like that's not necessarily going to be the case. So yeah, definitely go and check it out. But you don't need to organize your whole day around that visit. I think that might be a good way to say it. Okay, now what if you are staying at the Boardwalk Hotel? So again, we're going to go over and talk to Kristy about her experience staying there. And I've asked her some questions about my impressions of what this hotel is like from a guest perspective. And so I'm excited for you to hear some of that conversation as well. But what is it like to stay there? So I have kind of described it like a sea, right? That there is a outside that faces Crescent Lake, and then there's this inside that is more the hotel. But actually, the hotel is much, much bigger than that. It's really like an H, like a cursive H. Like there are little crab legs of rooms that come from each side. So while you might think that the rooms facing the Crescent Lake are the only rooms there are, no, there's a ton more of rooms, which means that if you're staying at the Boardwalk Hotel, you could actually have a room that's quite far away from the actual boardwalk. And what's interesting about the deluxe resorts is that seems to be the case in a lot of those resorts. Whereas I don't know, maybe I just am more experienced with value and moderate resorts. It just seems like it's a much more efficient walk to get something for breakfast or a late night snack. But when you're staying at the boardwalk, like when I'm looking from the map, for example, it just seems like a very long walk. But if you are staying, for example, in one of the deluxe villa rooms, so like a studio, remember you'll have a little kitchenette that you can like bring some leftovers and make your coffee, all of that stuff. This hotel, while it has one big pool, the Luna Park pool with the pool bar, it also has two smaller, quieter pools that are a lot more convenient to get to depending on where you're staying. Those again are quiet pools, so you can really have a nice kind of a nice swim, a nice lounge, and like the kids, the jumping and playing and the water slides and all that stuff will be at the big pool. There is also a gym called the Muscles and Bustles Health Club, and that is very close to the large pool as well. You can actually see it if you are going from the lobby to the pool, and it's a standard type gym, even though it's called Muscles and Bustles, like, again, themed to the 20th century Atlantic City type of feel. This resort also has a conference center, and unlike the Contemporary or Coronado or the Swan or Dolphin, I never really think of this hotel as a conference center, as a conference hotel. So it'd be, if you've ever stayed there and you're attending a conference, let me know what that experience is like. But that is also attached to the hotel. But if you are just kind of stopping by, you don't see it. They've really designed it well. So it is outside of that kind of main hub of places that you would go. At the front of the hotel as well, right off the lobby, there is a bus stop, and that bus stop will take you to Animal Kingdom and to Magic Kingdom and to Disney Springs and to do the transfers to the water parks as well. There is only one bus stop. So, it's funny because one of the things that people will complain about with with the value resorts is that there is only one bus stop. And then the moderate resorts, there are multiple bus stops because of the way that the hotels are designed. But in the deluxe resorts, there's really only one bus stop as well, and they're usually at the front. And yes, it is a much more comfortable place to sit and wait for your bus than it is at one of the all-star hotels, for example. But there is only one bus stop if you are going to Magic Kingdom or you're going to Animal Kingdom. If you're going to Epcot and Hollywood Studios, like I said, you can walk to either one of those parks or you can take the boat, which I really like, although it is very slow. If you wanted to know if it was faster to do the boat or to walk, generally, depending on how fast you walk, it would definitely be faster to walk than to take the boat. But I like a Disney boat. I say that all the time. It's relaxing, it's calm, it's slow, and maybe that's exactly what you want. You can get the boat off the boardwalk. There's a boat dock there. You can see it. And of course, you can take that boat even if you are not staying at that hotel. Those boats stop at the boardwalk, Epcot, Yacht and Beach Club, Swan and Dolphin, Hollywood Studios, and then it just goes around in that circle. Actually, it might be Hollywood Studios, Swan and Dolphin, Yacht and Beach Club, Boardwalk, Epcot, and then back. I don't know. It's I'm not quite sure the order of Yacht and Beach Club versus Boardwalk, but it's one then the other. And I mean, sometimes it feels like you can swim across Crescent Lake faster than it takes to cross there by boat. Do not do that, however, but take those boats. They're really great. The boardwalk also has tennis courts, pickleball courts. It's the same court. It has a hot tub, all that stuff. You can actually get pickleball or tennis rackets from the community hall. You can talk to a cast member about that. But of course, if you're going solo, you're going to need somebody to play with. So you can always see if there's another solo up for it. One other thing about transportation, you will be able to see the Skyliner from the Boardwalk Hotel, but it is completely inaccessible for you to use it. I mean, of course, I guess you can use it, but you have to walk further to get it than it would be to go where you need to go on the Skyliner. So you get the beautiful view of the Skyliner, but you really can't take it anywhere. All right, I think I've covered everything. So should you go when you're solo? Yes, definitely go. Go and eat. Go eat at the Italian restaurant. I've been there for breakfast. I've been there for dinner. Some of the best pasta I've ever had. I really enjoyed it. Go get a corn dog if that's your thing. Go get a slice of cake from there if that's your thing. God, I wish it felt better to me. I don't know. I mean, I do know, but I'm not going to get into it. Go check out the deli. Go check out the pool bar. Like, go hang out. Yeah, like it's a really cool space, but it is not overwhelmingly populated in a way that if you were solo and are intimidated by like a lot of other people hanging out, being cool, thinking that you were now like isolated from being cool. That's not true. You're the coolest if you're there solo. Then don't worry, that's not really the case at all. And I also think that like the dance club is actually a pretty cool, chill place as well. So obviously go and check that out if you are interested in it. Now, of course, the one kind of caveat with all of that stuff is because it is kind of more of a public-ish space, like Disney Springs, for example. You don't need to be staying at Disney to go to the dance hall or eat at the restaurant or go to the Abracadabra bar or all that stuff. There could be people that, again, have had a couple drinks that might feel kind of un-Disney. So if you're there at night, for example, just know that maybe your antenna has to go up a little bit more, but nothing that should keep you away from checking out the boardwalk. So yeah, energetically dead, but also kind of chill and fun. I really don't want to call myself energetically dead here, but I feel like that might be where I'm going with it. I don't know. I love it. Like, I always think of it with very hot, like the sun being very high, being very, very hot, and it just being this really cool, tranquil place to kind of stop and recharge. And I always think, oh, this really should be busier. That's my impression of Boardwalk. Yeah, I really, really enjoy it. I definitely stop at the boardwalk more than I stop at Yacht and Beach Club, and that's actually what we're going to be talking about next week. So next week is going to be Yacht and Beach Club on the other side of Crescent Lake. I cannot wait. So right now, let's go over and talk with Kristy, also known as Mickey Guru Travel. She is a travel agent, so of course you can always get in touch with her if you are looking to book a trip to the boardwalk or any of the other Disney resorts or Universal as well. It was so wonderful to talk with her. Again, all of her links to all of her social media are down below. Let's get into it. Hi, Kristy. How are you?
Hello, good. I'm great. How are you doing, Samantha?
Good. Thank you so much for agreeing to come and talk about Boardwalk. I feel like
Yeah,
we can talk about a lot of things because you were just in Disney. I mean, by the time we're talking, not necessarily the time I'm posting this, although maybe. So thank you for coming on to talk about something so specific, and maybe we'll get a chance to talk about something larger. Can you introduce
sure.
yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Kristy. I am the owner and founder of Mickey Guru Travel Company. I live in New Hampshire with my husband and daughter, Allison. I have been a Disney fanatic since my teens. And although we go as a family frequently, I go solo 3 to 4 times a year. So I love listening to your podcast because it does point out things for me that I may not have thought of to give a try, but I do find that solo travel is kind of my favorite. It lets me kind of slow down and do only what I want to do.
Totally.
So that can be, really freeing. So,
I know it's funny when people who don't like know Disney at all, they're like, "You go to Disney without kids?" And I was like, I go to Disney without anybody, and it's way better. I don't know why you'd
yeah.
even want to go with kids.
To be honest, my daughter is an adult now, but I went recently with my husband's cousins and their 2 little kids, and I was exhausted. I was like, this is just too much.
Yeah,
Like I and I literally followed it up with like 2 weeks later, I went back all by myself and just did it completely different because it is just such a different animal when you're doing it with others, regardless of kids, adults, or anything like that. So
Totally.
get it.
Totally. And I think that with solo travel, it is, I mean, for a lot of people, it's really about healing and about fun, but it's also about treating yourself, which is why it's really cool to be able to do this series on Deluxe Resorts. Because if you, like, you might not have wanted to stay at a resort like the Boardwalk if you're there with kids, like, it might not seem like the best place for you, but I'm interested in what your experience was like, has been like staying there solo. So, can you like start by telling us a little bit about your boardwalk stays when you've been there solo?
Yeah, sure. So I've stayed there a total of 3 times all by myself. And the first time I just got a standard view room and I was barely there because the idea was food and wine festival. So I was kind of out and doing the thing. But when I returned, I actually booked myself, speaking of treat yourself, I booked
Yes.
myself the club level room with a special view, a boardwalk view.
Uh-huh.
And that trip changed me. And the third time I went, I did the same because I wanted to slow down. I wanted to disconnect. I wanted to not think about anything. And staying at the boardwalk, especially in a club level, allowed me to really do that. Um, I had great conversations with the cast members in the Innkeepers Club. And honestly, that's one of my favorite parts of solo is just connecting with the cast. I'm not a huge talk to strangers person, but cast members, I love hearing their stories. I love interacting with them and just kind of learning more about what it's like to actually work there. So I learned a lot about that at the boardwalk because there was a great woman named Stacy actually that was just she loved every morning I walked in there. She was like, "I'm ready for you, Kristy," and she would like go out of her way to like welcome me in. It was a quiet time of year, so that definitely helped. But I think that my stays in the club level made it just an extra level of awesome. Um, but I've also taken advantage of the ease of access of Hollywood Studios and Epcot and kind of just wandered. I when I go by myself, I don't really make a plan. I kind of just go by whatever I feel at the moment. So much so that once I actually was walking towards Epcot and then decided, nah, and turned around and went to Hollywood Studios instead, because I was thinking there was a drink that I wanted to get over on Sunshine Boulevard that I was like, I gotta go. So I ended up changing my mind and going that direction. So to me, the boardwalk for solo, especially, is all about relaxation, all about just kind of engaging in the environment, sitting by the pool, and that type of thing. So it really fills a spot for me that I don't get other places. Even though Boardwalk is not my number one favorite resort, believe that or not.
Okay, I have so many follow-up questions. Obviously, is what is your favorite resort? But don't answer that question yet, just yet. I have a
Okay.
question. First, shout out to Stacy, the cast member.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
have a question about club level. So, club level for
Mhm.
people who are listening is like you get there's a room, like a club room, where you can get food during the day, especially breakfast and like snacky things at dinner. Although when I was at Coronado, I definitely made that a full dinner. And it's just like a place that you can hang out. But I have argued on the podcast that it is not a great financial decision for solos. Like it makes more sense financially if there's at least two people making use of the club level.
And I think that you can definitely make that argument. I think the difference for me, and I should say, I love a club level anyway.
Yeah,
That
I
is
mean,
definitely my
yeah.
jam. I'm bougie like that for sure. Um, but at the boardwalk, what I found is because it's so close to Epcot and Hollywood Studios that I often walked back there during the day.
Mm.
Um, and I'm also a napper. So I would go to Epcot for the morning, come back, have lunch in the club lounge, take a nap, and then head back over to like Hollywood Studios for the afternoon. And that I think makes the difference. If you're doing it just for breakfast, although you can, get your money's worth over there, if you really try. It is a space that feel like when you're by yourself, as long as you're using the lounge to the fullest, and let's be real, they say it's not for whole meals. I have absolutely had days when I ate nothing but what was available in the club lounge. So I think that, I'd never done the dollars and cents because quite honestly, Samantha, I don't want to know. I'm treating myself. I like the fact I don't have to think about it. I can just get what I want. I'm not a big drinker, so I know that if people like alcohol, they have it available all day. They start with mimosas at 7:30 in the morning and it goes right through the evening. But I don't really do that. If I have one mimosa across a week, that's a lot. Um, so yeah, I don't do the comparison, so to speak, but I like the flexibility and the bouginess of it.
Yeah.
It sounds so bad.
So I did club level with Coronado in that really cheap week in January, and it was my
Hmm.
mother's Christmas present. So I brought my mom, and I did do the dollars and cents. And I was like, "Mom, if you don't eat anywhere else this whole trip, I think it might be worth it." And she
Uh-huh.
was like, "Okay." And she liked, like, it was great. And yeah, I, like you, would go in the afternoon and be like, "Oh, I'm not going to have lunch here." But then I was like, I don't know, these Uncrustables are pretty good.
And I have to say, like, I eat like a child, so those Uncrustables definitely work for me on some days.
Yeah.
But this Club Lounge also had like baked mac and cheese,
Nice.
and it had like a mashed potato with like beef and
It like
gravy.
midday though?
Uh, yeah, the mac and cheese was definitely midday. I think the beef and mashed potatoes was a dinner offering or hors d'oeuvres
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
offering. But I definitely, the other thing that I always do when I'm staying club level is I make sure I book the earliest flight in and the latest flight out, and I go right there. Because even if your room's not ready, you can still go to the club lounge,
Yeah.
and that's where the party starts.
Yeah. Okay, and the other question I had for you was what is your favorite resort then?
So overall, my favorite resort is actually Disney's Wilderness Lodge.
Oh, nice.
Um, that was my first deluxe resort, but
Mm-hmm.
way back in 1999 when my husband and I went there for our honeymoon. So
Oh,
it's become a family favorite.
right.
Um, but I've stayed at all the resorts and love certain things about all of them. So, but I really Boardwalk is just a special place to me. That feeling of being quote unquote by the ocean, even though there's no ocean out there, it still feels that. And I'm a big people watcher, especially on solo trips. So the idea of grabbing a drink, typically it's an iced tea, and then I go out and just sit on the boardwalk and watch people and really just kind of take it all in and listen to the music, that sort of thing. It just works for me really well for that kind of trip.
It seems like from an outsider, it seems like all of the rooms are that main kind of U shape that faces Crescent Lounge, but that's not the case. There's so many little kind of octopus legs that go kind of further, like closer to Hollywood Studios. So, based on like when you've gone, are there particular places of rooms that you think are better or worse for solos? Now, I know like club level rooms are usually grouped in one place, but even just knowing your experience with a resort, are there particular areas that you think that a solo should be like, oh yeah, this is a good type, like a place for a room?
Yeah, there really is. And part of the confusion over at that resort, as far as the where the rooms are actually located, is that it is Boardwalk Inn and villas.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got like the standard hotel rooms and also the villa properties. My favorite over there is the deluxe studio with a boardwalk view. That's how you can be absolutely sure that the room that you're getting is going to have that. And I feel like with a solo trip, it also has the benefit of those rooms have a queen size bed and then a pull down queen. I don't need the second bed. So that gives me way more space in that room. It also has the flexibility of, it has a slightly larger fridge and it's definitely a refrigerator versus a beverage cooler. And it has the microwave, which some people might some people might use that. I don't. But I do have several solo traveler clients that have food allergies. So they'll do some food prep and such in their room. So having that is really convenient. So I think that that's how I would normally recommend it is going for that boardwalk view in the deluxe studio villa. Otherwise, your room really can be anywhere all the way around that resort. So you could end up way down by Hollywood Studios which is fine if you're planning on spending a lot of time there. But if you're really thinking more focused on Epcot, it's rather inconvenient. So my little hack there is just to book the deluxe studios because that definitely makes it easier.
Yeah, that's really useful. And I mean, that's coming out in a lot of the conversations with the deluxe hotels is that you do get the option, or there is an option available that's based on the DVC deluxe studios, or even just a studio, which does kind of open up the type of room options that you get. This hotel too has multiple pools. It has like the big
Mhm.
pool, and then it has the two small pools. Are either of those like locked off just for DVC members? I think this is a resort that no, you don't need to be a DVC member to be able to use the quiet pools either, right?
Yeah, you're welcome to use either the main theme pool or any of the quiet pools, which is really convenient because typically if I'm there by myself, I don't need the large themed pool with the screaming children and all of the hustle and the
Have you
bustle.
gone down that water slide though?
I did when it was the clown facing one, but now and that freaked me out. And
Yeah.
as a kind of a joke, like I was like, this is weird. But I'm not a huge slide fan anyway. I'm more of a waiter and not waiter, but waiter. Like
Yeah,
you just
yeah.
kind of float around a little bit and get wet and get out. Um, and that's one of the reasons why I think I prefer the quiet pools most of the time because it does tend to be a little bit more chill. And I usually will spend time just reading a book or a People magazine or something like that. And so it's easier to do that over there in those quiet pools.
Do you have a favorite quiet pool of the two?
No, I don't think so. I honestly feel like I visit both, depending on the time. So my solo trips, I definitely spend more resort focused
Mm.
than parks. And part of that is sometimes I'm doing remote work on location. So if I have booked the club level, I might be just have my laptop there and working and drinking and eating and getting my money's worth. Or I'm sitting by the pool and relaxing in between work meetings and things like that. So I kind of bounce between those.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the nice thing about going solo is that you do have that flexibility just to like let your day go. And that's why I too like I really encourage people to like know what they want and make their own decisions on their solo trip. But I also say like if you're going solo, just stay on property because just being on the at those hotels is part of your vacation yourself and you can really appreciate that. I have a question. I know you have done breakfast your when you've done club level, but when I think of the boardwalk staying there, it seems like your food options for your breakfast, or even like at the end of the day when you just want like a little snack, even if that snack is like a whole pizza before you get to your room, it seems like it's actually kind of inconvenient at Boardwalk. It doesn't seem like there are really a lot of food options like by the rooms. You really have to like exit. Am I wrong? What's your experience been like that?
No, I think you're completely right. And I think that that is the one drawback that I personally find with Boardwalk. And it is that your room could be, like we said, all the way out by Hollywood Studios, and then your opportunity to get pizza or a snack is all the way out on the actual boardwalk. So you have to exit the building to actually get to any of the food options. However, when I say that, it does remind me that when you're staying at Pop Century, right, you don't have it in the same building. You could even be staying at most of the buildings at Grand Floridian and still have to walk over to Gasparilla. So it is a slight inconvenience, but I don't think is as big as you might feel it is beforehand,
Mm.
right? Like then there's so much out there that to me it's almost worth doing the walk. It is very inconvenient. And before COVID, they used to do some room service, and now they don't do any of that. So you do have to go walk. But again, if you're staying anywhere other than my Wilderness Lodge, which everything is contained in one building, or maybe Animal Kingdom Lodge, like those places that have all the contained, there is some level of inconvenience depending on where your room is actually located.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Are there any extra safety concerns that have ever occurred to you when you have been at Boardwalk?
So not for me, but I did have a client once that was a bit pestered by someone out on the boardwalk that had had too much to drink.
Mm.
And what she did though, and I think this makes a whole lot of sense. She was traveling solo. She found a couple that was happened to be sitting outside, right by the little margarita bar, and she went and said, "Hi, someone's bothering me. Do you mind if I sit here?" And they were like, "Absolutely." And apparently the woman actually was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad to see you," and like gave her a big hug, and like they pulled the chair over, and the person went away. And it wasn't necessarily that she felt physically threatened, but she had already interacted with them a little bit, made it clear that she wasn't interested in having any further conversation, and the person just kept popping up.
Mm.
So I think it's just like when you go anywhere in this world, right? Like Disney sometimes gives us a feeling of false security because anybody can be anywhere. So you do have to, keep your wits about you. But there are always people around, which is one of the benefits, I think, at Disney. This isn't
Yeah.
like you're walking alone down New York City streets, right? This is like you just found a couple that happened to be sitting there having a drink before they went back to their own room. And this was about, it was in 2023. And as the last time I spoke to her, they were still friends now. They've been friends on Facebook. They had great conversations. So she was like, in a weird kind of way, I'm glad that it happened.
Yeah,
So
well,
that's,
it's funny because you were saying before, like, talk to cast members, and I think that when you are traveling by yourself, generally, not necessarily at Disney, you don't want people, especially as a woman or a femme person, you don't want people to know that you're by yourself. Like that's like your
yeah.
biggest safety thing. But at Disney, there is something about just like letting cast members know that you're there by yourself. That just adds this extra protection. Like it just creates that community a little bit tighter around you. And yeah, there's like weird people everywhere and things like alcohol definitely, put one and like because the boardwalk, that's why I asked that question around the eating, because the boardwalk is kind of like a public type of place, right? It's not quite as public as Disney Springs, but you can go and get a drink at the dance hall and this and that. You don't need to be staying on the property. So that kind of element could be there, but Disney generally has people you can just befriend out of nowhere. I love that
There
story.
is. There is. And there's also, I mean, I think people that are familiar with Disney know that you see Disney security everywhere. And one thing that I have become aware of over recent years is that there's also a lot of plainclothes security people. So, and regardless of whether you're talking about in the parks or at the resorts, like there are people monitoring. So, the idea that there are people available to just befriend or reach out to, that makes me feel better. And I do travel solo to other places. Like I've been to Las Vegas, I've been to New York City, and I definitely feel way safer. At Disney, and not just because it's in the bubble, but because there are so many other good people around to just connect with. You're not feeling like you're ever going to be alone somewhere.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I don't see a lot of security people. And to me, when I realized that one time I was walking and I was like, oh, how come I'm not seeing security? I'm like, oh, because they're everywhere. Like
Uh-huh.
they've created a system in which there are cameras and plain clothes and like all of these other things that are securing you, but they don't want it to feel like military state. And that's when I was like, oh, right, like this is actually really safe.
Yeah, and I didn't realize just how many plainclothes there were until I met someone that is a plainclothes security officer at Disney. And I've heard now all the stories about it. And I'm thinking, you really are everywhere.
Everywhere.
So that's a
Yeah.
feeling for me. But I do think that my biggest thing is being able to just reach out to anybody that happens to be walking by. I will say that when I'm alone, I definitely think about when I'm leaving Hollywood Studios to walk back to the boardwalk.
Hmm.
Epcot, that pathway seems to be busy 24/7, but the Hollywood Studios, like sometimes I like to stay until the very end. If I'm walking back that way, I'm not staying to that point. I'll stay till park closing, but I want to be part of a group that's walking that back. So,
Right. And then there's always the boat that one could take.
mhm.
And one could also take the Skyliner over, which is very take a very long time, but you could take the Skyliner Epcot and walk there. I've done
Yeah.
that. I've done that to just avoid the Skyliner line at Epcot. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's a beautiful ride too. So
Yeah,
that it could be a
it
nice
is.
way to
Yeah.
close out the night for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay, I don't want to keep you any longer, but I want to know if there was anything that you like, any like special things that you want solos to like know or do or look for when they're at Boardwalk.
Oh, that's a great question. Um, I think I want people to understand that it is not, you don't look strange. You don't look out of place. And a lot of people, when they first tell me things like, I want to go to Disney, but my family doesn't want to go, or I want to go to, and I'm like, so leave them behind, right? That there is a comfort in that. But I would also say that at the boardwalk specifically, one of the things that I like is that if you're not yet comfortable going to like full sit down dining by yourself, there are lounge spaces. So, like flying fish, you don't have to miss out on the flying fish experience because there is a bar seating there, which you might feel more comfortable. I know I've gone in there mostly just to talk to the people that work there because that's, clearly my game. And I think that
I
that
know you keep
is
saying that you don't like to talk to strangers, but like a lot of these stories are about that. So I feel like you need to like rewrite your own narrative.
I probably do. It's cast members. And I think, in a previous life, I might have been one, or maybe it's going to end up being something for me at one point. But I enjoy the connecting to them and hearing the stories, good, bad, and ugly. Like I like hearing that stuff. And I think that the idea of the setup of Boardwalk, I'm also a huge people watcher. So another big one for me, you won't catch me dancing very often, but Atlantic Dance Hall, I love to go in and the music is great. I mean, like I'm a late 80s, early 90s kind of girl, so like the music they play is so much fun and I like to go and just watch people. They also have great mocktails in there. So if you're not an
Ooh,
alcohol
that's great to
t
know.
drinker, they have some great ones in there. So I do think that like those little things make it a little bit better, but for me, it's the whole overall vibe of the place. It's just comfortable, but yet elegant. So that's kind of how I come to the that being a place.
It's interesting because I described it in the episode that I need better adjectives, but I was like, when I'm going from Epcot to Hollywood Studios and I just need a break, I like to go to Boardwalk because it feels very full and elegant, but also dead.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a terrible, terrible way to explain it. But I'm like, there's just like an energy that is just like, I don't know. It just feels very dead is kind of the right word, but I don't mean it in a pejorative way. Whereas at Beach and Yacht Club, there's like,
Yeah, and I will say though, I think at Beach Club, I definitely get that energy vibe. And I think it has something to do with like the character breakfast that's very loud into the lobby. And it tends to be a place that people are swarming to for one reason or another. But Yacht Club, I find very relaxing. In fact, that's one of my other favorite places because it just tends to be really quiet, and laid back over there.
yeah,
No, I definitely get what you mean. And I think like especially during the day, most people that are there are not hanging out at Boardwalk during the day. So it can be a really great place midday to just kind of go. Plus, during the Christmas season, their gingerbread house is the carousel, which is always really cool to check out. So that's one of my must-go stops during that time of year for sure.
yeah. The last couple of years, Grand Floridian it's just been too crazy. So I will like do the Epcot hotels, and that's been so much more fun. That's been
Hmm.
so much more fun. And the cast members have been so great in like explaining what's there. And there's always like people. Anyway, yeah. So this was so wonderful. Now, how can people get in touch with you if they want to book a vacation with you to go to the boardwalk or elsewhere? But also, I think they can listen to more of your tips and stuff like that too. So, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. So I am also the host of a podcast, and it's called Talk Travel to Me. It is primarily Disney focused, but not entirely. It's based on inspiring people to travel. So that's one of my little passion projects. You can reach out to me at our website, which is mickey.guru.com. And I'm on all the socials under at Mickey Guru Travel. So that's where I am. And if you like older Gen X TikTokers, I'm active there as long as you have a sense of humor. No dancing, but it's kind of fun. It's my fun little playground that I frequent over there. So
All right. Well, all the links to that is below. I'm not on TikTok, but I've seen, like, obviously we connected on Instagram and Threads, I think. And yeah, it's really fun to follow you. So thank you so much. And we'll have to get a chance to do this again for another conversation.
awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.
A big thanks to my special guest for talking about their experiences staying at this deluxe resort. If you want to support them as well as me, please make sure you follow us on our social media channels. The links to those are in the description below. You can also find a link to my Patreon. And in the Patreon, when you become a Patreon member, you can watch our conversation, the whole conversation of us talking. And I always find that that is a great way to just get even more enmeshed into the community of Disney adults and how wonderful it is to go to Disney solo. The Patreon membership is really affordable. It's about $1 a week for Americans and $1.25 a week for Canadians, and you get the videos from all the solo stories, reflections on each one of the episodes, as well as opportunities to vote on future episodes and a breakdown of all of the different upcoming episodes. There's also some bonus episodes that get thrown in every once in a while, and the more of you there are on Patreon, the more you can let me know what you need, and the more I can create those very things. You can also support the podcast by liking, reviewing, sharing, and subscribing to the podcast on all of the different platforms that this podcast is hosted on, which include Apple, Spotify, and on YouTube. I hope you enjoyed this episode and all the episodes of Disney Solo Magic. Thank you so much for listening. Bye!